There you go. I do hear see some responses. Thank you. Um, uh, Welcome. I think this is the first of two Baycrest Center for Learning Research and Innovation presentation or webinars that we're doing this in the next couple of months. My name is Jennifer Ragwindin. I'm a nurse by training and the interprofessional educator for the Baycrest Center for Learning, Research, and Innovation. So thank you to everybody who has signed up and is joining us for this next hour. We are going to be talking about Trigger Match, which is a serious game to foster team collaboration in the care of persons with dementia. So just to just give you a heads up, if you're looking for handouts for the presentation, it is uploaded and ready for you to download. It should be on your webinar viewer there. And this webinar will allow us to engage each other in multiple of ways. So we'll be doing polls in a couple of different ways today. So hopefully you'll have a chance to join us and let us know what your thoughts are as we go along in this session. So if you've not heard of who we are as a CLRI, that's our acronym for the very long Center for Learning, Research, and Innovation. We are three centers at Schlegel, Bruyere, and Baycrest, working towards training and education as well as knowledge mobilization in the long-term care sector. And so there are many activities that the three host sites actually share across the province of Ontario. And you'll be hearing from us in a series of webinars, hopefully throughout the next few months. If you're curious about our getting in contact with us, here is some of the information that may be helpful for you. So we've got our email, a 1877 number. A lot of our resources that we have is actually found in our website at clri-ltc.ca. And we are active on social media and we do tweet a lot in the various sites. So let's just get started with the session. So the objective for today is to share with you a different way to enhance creativity and proactivity in the care of residents with responsive behaviors. We're also hoping this activity, you'll see how it can support critical thinking and the valuing of non-pharmacological interventions. We're also hoping to show you how this particular serious game will encourage teamwork and collaborative practice within an interprofessional team. So just to get things started right now, I'll be sharing a poll with you. And if you could just answer this question and let us know exactly how do you engage your staff in learning or reviewing or refreshing about responsive behaviors. So I'm pretty sure you can select a lot of options. Oh, wait, you guys are answering and I'll share it. I'll give it a couple more seconds to see what kind of education that the participants actually do. Awesome. So I'm going to close this and share with you what we have. So for the most part, I know there's only so many options I could do for the polls here, but for the most part, we have drop-in sessions or annual education updates, followed by handouts and posters, as well as e-learning modules. There's a small percentage that actually get some education days towards a certificate. For those of you who have answered other, I'd love to have an opportunity to know what kind of other activities you do. So if you have an opportunity to share in your chat, what kind of what kind of activities would fall under other, I'd love to know and probably share with others as well. A tower team meeting, wow. Huddles, oh, of course, huddles. That sounds great. So Let's move on. So my next poll. So I had to step outside of the go-to webinar in order to get a more dynamic kind of interaction with the participants. And so there's two ways to join this poll. If you're on your computer, you can type in pollev.com/Baycrest, and you'll have the opportunity to see the question that I will be activating soon. If you've got your phone with you, if you could text the word Bakerest to the phone to the number 37607, you'll be able to join us using this poll. I know some webinars in the last CLRI webinars have used this in the past. If this is your first time using poll everywhere, we'll just bear with us a second. So the question that I will be asking you is actually, oh, people already started answering, so thank you. So the question is, in one or two words, what kind of skill sets could be enhanced or improved upon when working with residents with responsive behavior? So if you can think of some of the skill sets that you'd love to highlight in the next few, I guess in the next fiscal or in the next quarter, what kind of skills do you think you'd like to enhance? So I like using word clouds, and as you can see, word clouds, the size of the word determines how many people are actually responding or sharing the exact same word as you're typing. So yes, communication is a big deal. Consistency in the interventions is a very important aspect. The approach, yes, of course, how we approach our client is very much important when it comes to working with clients with dementia. Approach, awareness. Ooh, I really do love seeing the movement of these word clouds. But I should move on to the next question. I'll be using this poll everywhere again. And so in the next few, towards the end of the presentation, I'm still enjoying the movement, but I will be moving forward right now. Oh, I just wanted to show you what I wasn't sure if this technology would actually work, so I thought I'd put in another word cloud from a different kind, a different presentation when I use this question again. And as you can see, communication is really very important when it comes to working with our clients with dementia. And so even collaborating and communicating with our team members is quite important. So let's just give you an idea of where the game actually started from. So we do at Bakerest have a one-day session that is a team essentials for coordinating care for responsive behavior. And so in this face-to-face session, we work with PSWs, RNs, RPNs. We've had a lot of social workers or social services as well as therapeutic recreation come join us in these sessions. Management has come to join us. And in doing an interprofessional approach, what we found out is that we have the ability in these face-to-face sessions to build a common understanding of the team's roles and contribution to managing responsive behaviors. For the most part, we found some people share their thoughts and their emotions and feelings that they feel alone when it comes to working with responsive behavior. And then, so if we do work with teams and teach within teams, we have the ability to set expectations within that team, because one of the requirements that our manager Raquel Meyer has shares with the leadership of external homes is that hopefully they can bring in a nurse, PSW, allied health group or teams to come learn with us for a day. And so developing observation and team reporting skills is something that we do discuss throughout the whole day, as well as how do we actually talk to each other given the different lenses and approaches that we have, or focus we have in the various roles. So these are our learning objectives. And so we build upon various concepts of the 3R framework. This is how we teach a variety of our one-day learning sessions. So we use a 3R framework wherein we recognize the concern, reflect or critically think through why we're seeing what we're seeing and how to respond in the moment. And in this one-day learning session, we have the opportunity to highlight the non-pharmacological, pharmacological, clinical interventions that may be utilized and seen when it comes to responsive behaviors. And then we create case scenarios and practice that big giant communication skill that a lot of people actually need a lot more. They may know about communicating with about responsive behaviors, but that confidence is something that needs to be built upon. Because if you think about it, we may know what's in our head, but it's a different skill set to be able to say it out loud with confidence. And so that's something that we do practice throughout the day using case scenarios. And so looking at that word cloud that was building, using that pull everywhere, there are many skills that we can enhance or work on or improve upon when we're working with clients with responsive behavior. So these are some of the skills that we touch upon or highlight throughout that one-day learning session. So I do have another poll question for you, and let me just set that up so you can just join in and share with us your ideas. So here's the second question for you. Outside of your professional activity, outside of your day job, do you play games? And so let me know. Yeah! I get excited when I see people who actually play games. Yes, there are. Okay, I will share this this poll with you in a moment. I'd just like for you to consider. Ooh, over 80% has joined us. So let's close the poll and share the results. So as you can see, there's a lot of folks on the line who's had the who play games. So there's a lot of many different kinds of games, and I know some people always say, "But why are we playing games in our professional lives, right? Like within education sessions." So first and foremost, we know there's an element of fun when it comes to playing games, and so just bringing in what you do outside of work, there's a level of comfort and playing. There's a level of safety in playing, and I think this is what we're trying to accomplish with a game called Trigger Match. And so I think I have another poll question for you one last time. And that third question is, do you actually use games or active learning techniques to engage your staff? And so I guess my question is, what are active learning techniques? So if you bring it to the staff, they get to think, case studies, just-in-time learning activities during team huddles. So for those of you who do some huddles, is this something that you do? And so I'll share the results in a little bit. Awesome. And so for the most part, there are 65% say they use active learning techniques or games to engage staff. So I'd love to have an idea of what games you use, if it's something other than what we're presenting today. So that'd be great if you can share with in your chat what those other games are. All right, so I'm hiding this poll question. So thanks for joining the variety of questions that I'm sharing with you. So why? So a lot of us actually use games outside of our professional life, and so when we're talking about gaming, there are in education there are a lot of terms that you may hear, and so here are some terms. I just wanted to share with you some terms that you might come across. So game-based learning is essentially a series of actions and decisions that have rules and take place in a defined content, and any kind of game based learning is always directed towards a learning goal. Okay, so we also have simulation games that actually try to mimic a little bit of reality. And gamification, if you hear that concept, is really applying game mechanics to a non game system. So I think the easiest way to share a concept is the concept of Fitbit. So if you think about Fitbit, they gamify it in that there are leaderboards. You have the chance to check in with yourself how many steps you get in a day, and you can compete with yourself or compete with a community of your choosing. So walking is not really a game, but it can have that gamification aspects if you use some technology um, for you. And of course, game worlds, these are bigger concept games like virtual reality or programs called Second Life, wherein you can create a whole new, you can create avatars and all that fun stuff. So for our particular topic, we're just going to talk about the serious game. Serious games. And so this active learning technique allows the users. So I've been using gamification, I think, since 2013. And what we attempt to do is to get knowledge retention, a little bit of skill development based on the learning objectives that we set. We try to support client, staff, and students in their clinical decision making, and we embed that in the game mechanic that we have built for this particular game. And any kind of game, if you have if you do play, is intrinsically motivating for learners. So some people, one of the games that we do have in a different content area is called the SOS game. And the students that we do work with, actually we say create finish 20 cases, and some students will go above and beyond the 20 cases because they are intrinsically motivated to learn more and more. And so serious games for us here at Baycrest CLRI has been a positive experience for both educators like myself, as well as students and staff who actually encounter it. And it is self-pacing in that you can work and play these games according to when you have time available. And depending on the kind of games, serious games, if it's online, the students or the staff themselves can learn on their own pace. So we actually work with a gaming expert named David Chandros. And so what he always gets excited about is the neurophysiological response of our brain towards gaming. So you can see that depending on the game mechanics, depending on the peer-to-peer interaction, and depending on the satisfaction of solving a difficult case and the excitement in playing a game, there are a lot of neurotransmitters that get released and get you excited. And using this kind of excitement, some people actually get that addictive, I guess, is what the addictiveness towards any game that is being played. And so there's been some serious research behind the neurophysiological effects of gaming on the brain. So looking at the learners that we're encountering, so we're talking about staff, we're talking about students, and if most of you actually have played a game on the computer or board games, you can see that a lot of the newer students that we will, or newer staff that we will be encountering, are probably also gamers themselves. So this kind of activity gives us a chance to move our education into something that the modern learner will actually also be engaged in. And if you're looking at the tenured workforce and looking at the case-based scenarios that we have for the game that we're discussing discussing called Trigger Match. They can use their experience to actually help solve the concerns and cases that they encounter throughout gameplay. And it's just a positive, engaging culture. And I'll talk to you about our pilot tests in our behavior support unit that happened here a few years ago. So, Trigger Match. So this started in 2015 as an idea to use gamification to support our learning, our Team Essentials Education Day. And so we had a group of interns that we host every year here at the Baycrest Center for Learning Research and Innovation. For the summer, we had a group of interns come up with game mechanics, come up with some of the behaviors and triggers that we had beta tested and piloted in 2015. And we also have had the chance to improve a lot of the cases and scenarios that you'll see in the toolkits. We brought in our behavior support unit nurses and PSWs to share with us some cases and triggers that they've worked with to into the card deck that we've created. And we've also used this game in multiple conferences, as well as knowledge translation activities as CLRI. So the learning objectives, because as we said earlier, every serious game really does require a learning objective. And so looking at the skill set that a lot of you had shared with us earlier, critical thinking, communication, teamwork, and creativity is really is really important when it comes to working with clients with dementia and who are experiencing responsive behaviors. Granted, there are many other skills that we have to consider when working with our clients, but this is just one way to enhance some skills rather than just and practice these skills rather than just practicing no skills at all, if you think about it. So the game mechanics is built upon the concept of SBAR, and some people will say, Jen, we don't use SBAR, and in a future slide, I'll actually share with you a different kind of structure that you may use. It's the things the game we have created is really quite dynamic in that it can be applied in any way that you think will fit the staff or students that you do encounter. And so critical thinking. So what do I do in the moment? So that action to support the client in the moment is something that defines the game itself. Communication and how to share that verbal reporting in an SBAR format or a format of your choosing is really important to this game, because that is essentially the determining factor of how you will win points here in this game. Teamwork. We want within that SBAR format, you'll see the ability to bring in a lot of team members so you don't feel by yourself. And by rehearsing, asking for help, by rehearsing all the critical thinking and actions in the moment that you're able to do, it actually does give confidence to some of the staff and students that we've encountered along the way. Creativity. So why is creativity a part of this game? I think for the most part, when we do have our team essential learning session, there are some triggers that actually just keep on coming up. And so some people will say, oh, it has to be infection, or it's just a worsening of the dementia, or something else that they'll keep on coming back to during the day. And so by showing the concept of creativity in various formats, the staff and students that we encounter actually get comfortable to a depth and breadth of possibilities when it comes to playing this game. So here are some of the knowledge, skills, values, and behavior that we have built into the game, because it's not just about the mechanics itself, but making sure that the learning objectives are met. Hoping that our the people who play the game have the ability to practice and rehearse how to describe and be objective about behaviors, how to be concise in communication, how to practice risk assessment, how to collaborate with a team, and of course, valuing that non farm interventions are also important or more important than some of the pharmacological interventions. I remember there were some students that I've had the chance to work with who would say my action would be to call a code white when not. It's not necessarily needed at certain point at that point in the case scenario, and so we get them comfortable with a variety of actions and interventions that are non-pharmacologically related. And so we focus on the solution and hopefully the confidence building and communicating about the responsive behaviors that they do see. So these are some of the skill sets that we do target. So this is the image of our beta test for the game. So this is an image of our behavior support unit who engaged with us to work through our game mechanics, our cases, and I will be playing a video of what this looked like as well. So essentially, Trigger Match is a game where behavior meets trigger. And this game rewards the teams or individuals for creative and collaborative communication and care solutions. And those smiles are actually not posed. That was the actual gameplay that was happening and everybody was enjoying. So here are some of the, I guess, images of what the cards could look like. So there are key mechanisms within this game. So if you've played a game, the game called Apples to Apples, you'll see a similarity in that there is a card that is presented to everybody. Everybody will see the behaviors. So for example, while helping feed Mrs. Jackson, she grabs your wrist and threatens to hit you. And so the blanks denote the triggers that might be selected in order to come up with an action or recommendation to the rest of the team. So here are some examples of trigger cards that you may receive to select from. There are special cards. So the these special cards are essentially mixed in with the trigger cards, but it doesn't necessarily have to be used at all times. I've actually played games where I didn't use the special cards themselves, but you can see if these special cards will add some excitement to the game, or you can use it, put it aside depending on who you're working with. And so let me see. So the basics of the game. So every round, one player reads the behavior card. And so that is the behavior card that we saw earlier. And all other players will drop one or two trigger cards. And that is noted by the blanks that is on the behavior card itself. And so they do have a hand of 5 cards. If you're using your special cards, it does go up to 7. So they have about 5 triggers and 2 special cards, hopefully, in their hand. And so the team or the individual will then select one trigger card to the behaviors to the lead. And the lead then picks from a series of trigger cards. And if you can see here, we have if we will have a variety of trigger cards that will be on the deck to be selected from. And so I'll play a video of what the game will look like. And we actually have real gameplay that will be shared. So the steel cards, if you're thinking about using it, because this toolkit is available on our website, it just allows a chance for another team or another player to steal and complete the S-bar. So this just adds an element of competition to the game. The kudos cards allow for team players to contribute to, for other teams to select to offer some other actions or interventions that the winning team did not was not able to offer. We also have do it yourself cards. So there are actually blank trigger cards, and if you have that in your deck, it actually allows you to write whatever trigger you believe will be selected by the behavior support lead or the leader of the game. And so in putting all of these together and in knowing where the concept of our team essentials one day learning session teaches, the cards are actually part of the S bar themselves. So if you think about it, so if the behavior is actually Mrs. Smith repeatedly asking to go to the bus stop, which we've determined or the team may determine as a low risk behavior, and one of the trigger cards that was selected is that wants to go see her son who is out of the country. So maybe somebody got lucky and that was the trigger card that they received in their hand. And so the team member that gets the trigger card selected actually can offer an action in the moment, as well as a recommendation or a request from the team. And so some of the actions could be a distraction by offering her lunch, or a redirection to go to check out pictures of her son, and probably ask the team to arrange for a Skype discussion. And one of the things we actually encourage our players to do is to think about what part of the interprofessional team can actually support you in this manner. So it could be, so for somebody who's working with Skype discussion, it could be the recreation therapist, because that's who would probably do that here at Baycrest, in order to support that client to see her son, to decrease that behavior. So this is essentially the gameplay that we had envisioned and have been practicing. So some of you actually have may not use the S bar in how you engage your staff, and so I thought I'd put it in a different format and share with you how it could look like if you do use the ABC documentation for your staff. And so using the same behavior of Mrs. Smith repeatedly asking to go to the bus stop. And if the trigger card or the antecedent is wants to go see her son, you have the ability to fill in the consequence in terms of actions that you would do in the moment, as well as asking for help from the team. So as you can see, these cards are essentially can be used in a variety of formats. So whether you use, I'm not sure, soap in your documentation. I know for Montessori methods of dementia, the documentation of WOW, I can't remember what it stands for, actually is taught by Gail Elliott if you've engaged with her before. So it has the opportunity to be used in a variety of formats. So I hope you can see that in this application. So I know it's sometimes easier to see a game in action, and so I offered to you two gameplays that we had filmed in testing or sharing this activity with staff and students. This first video that you'll see is essentially the beta test that happened in 2015, and in working with our behavior support staff, as well as the behavior support unit, as well as behavior support outreach team, PSWs, you can see the game mechanic and the kinds of interactions that may happen during gameplay. So I'll give it a few moments. So bear with me. I hope this works. All right. So that game was played as individuals essentially. So all of them had a set of cards in their hands, offering triggers to the behavior that was on deck. And so you can see the interaction between the steal to get the S bar, as well as the kudos to consider other possibilities of why the behavior is being seen. So to go back to the objective of the game of creativity and critical thinking and communication and teamwork, I'm hoping you saw the opportunity for these skill sets to be practiced within the team. So this actually happened as a 15-minute session, I think 15 to 30-minute session. And we had shared with the team that we were just going to do that session for testing. And one of the cooler things that actually came out of this is that they had asked for other possible game time for the staff to practice these kinds of skill set. So this next video that I'll be sharing with you is what it could look like if you're dealing with teams. So in this video, you'll see two teams working, or three teams playing against each other. And you will see me in a cane. This was a long time ago. So if you don't know what I look like, I will be that person. So that second group is actually a group of internationally educated nursing students that we had worked with, I think, a couple last year. Um, and so this is a session that was one of their clinical instructors had suggested that they needed to practice a little bit more S bars as well as critical thinking. And so this is one of the activities that we did for the day. And so the students, in terms of competitive and confidence that they had over the weeks that we had worked with them, actually increased because of the rehearsals with S bar. And a lot of the two of the clinical instructors actually shared with us some performance improvement with the repetition that happens with the gameplay. So if you have any questions or comments in terms of the game itself, feel free to ask and I'll answer them as I go. So let me just see here. And so let's just talk about the toolkit of the game. And in essence, all the handouts, I'm hoping you had the opportunity to see the handouts or download the handouts from the go-to web meeting here. And all of these websites will be available as well. And so if you're thinking about working or utilizing Trigger Match in a variety of ways, here are the links that may be helpful to you. So the toolkit itself is a PDF form, a file that has a lot of appendix and information and resources that a lot of educators may find useful. And if you've never seen our site, our CLRI or Center for Learning, Research and Innovation site, it is there for you as well. So the toolkit itself actually has a lot of things. Let me just see if it actually will open. So it has a lot of pages. If you've had the opportunity to look into the website, you'll see that there's a variety, many pages here available for educators and staff. And so Just see. So we'll have the information, we'll have the behavior card deck that can be just printed off and utilized. We have the trigger card deck and the other hold cards, the other special cards like the do-it-yourself cards, the kudos cards, as well as the steel cards that you can print out. So how we use the trigger match card deck is essentially getting the card stock and just printing everything off and cutting them one by one. So it's still a homemade version. We haven't had the chance to print it out professionally, as you may say. We also have game evaluation forms that may be helpful for you if you like evaluating activities. And what we've also done is created blank card templates. So these particular templates is something that you may consider if you feel that there are some actions or sorry, some behaviors and triggers that your staff or students may really learn from. And so you can create your own if you wish. We also have cheat sheets available. So I know the game mechanic itself may be complicated, and a lot of people that I've encountered who actually use this card deck do go for a more simplified version, and that's definitely up to you as an educator to use. We also have some debriefing information available, as well as some points to consider. So as you can tell, this game can be played in a smaller group, as individuals, or in a larger group with teams against teams. And so there are some points to consider depending on the size of the group that you're working with. We also have PowerPoint presentations that you may use when you're just introducing the game itself to staff or students. And if you're curious about game-based learning and simulation, there are some basic information to just get you started with this kind of learning activity. And so this is just a sample of what some of the behavior cards could look like. And so what we've done in creating these behavior cards is that we were looking for verbal and physical behaviors, as well as some of the more non-aggressive behaviors or aggressive behavior. So it just does allow for people to think of possible actions in the moment differently, as well as how to consider the team members differently depending on the types of behaviors that students do encounter. And how did we create the trigger cards? So just to give you an idea, we had a biopsychosocial approach to creating these trigger cards. And of course, that environmental factor is a big deal. And so a lot of these possibilities were created and printed with the help of staff as well as students' experience. So what do these cheat sheets or pocket cards look like? So if you'd like to use the concept of SBAR in playing the game, here is just something that you can print out and give to students in order to support their learning if they're just practicing the S-bar for the first time. And so it's always nice to scaffold the learning by having some resources available. And you can see that the situation in the background is already filled in for you or for the gamer themselves as the behavior card and the trigger card. What we also have is some of the non-pharmacological or relational approaches that may be used in order to work with the behavior that is presented to you. So here are some of the general activities that can be done. So distracting, engaging in a different activity, assisting a client in doing something, a resident in something else, redirection. So where the practice comes from is being specific and how these clinical actions can be used. Also, if we're working with nurses as well as they can also offer some of the clinical assessments or diagnostics that they may do or suggest for the team to consider. And so in the recommendation or request section, this is where we hopefully consider some of the best practices in responsive behavior and using some dementia observation system and specifying the types of monitoring and which team player would be very, very helpful in the case that is being presented. It also has the game mechanic in the back of the pocket card, and as you can see, is step by step, and the points are also built into the pocket card, so the everybody is clear as to how many points they have during gameplay. So one of the things that may be new, or I guess just to establish a common definition, is that part of the game actually discusses risk level as well. I mean, if safety is such a big concept for everybody when working with clients who may be exhibiting responsive behaviors, and so considering the levels and safety for the players is something that they can practice on the spot. So they can choose from low, medium, or high in terms of the behaviors that they encounter during gameplay. And so the risk level is also part of the S bar itself, and we usually put them under situation. As soon as they say the behavior card, they have to select if the behavior is actually low, medium, or high risk. And so there's a variety of applications. And in one of the homes that actually use this particular card, a card game that they've downloaded from the website, is essentially using this activity in orientation to get an icebreaker ready, or in between sessions when the facilitator is setting up for the next activity, they'll use this card game in between drop-in sessions. So as you can tell, some of our staff at our behavior support units had requested for game rounds, and so these drop-in sessions, that particular video you saw was about, we started off with 3 people. And then all of a sudden, the whole unit had joined us for that game session. We use this with our students, as you can see in one of the video. And of course, one of the homes has shared with us they wanted to use this card game with families as well. So they were trying to look for ways to apply the trigger match to work with families in their homes. So it's pretty dynamic and applicable in a lot of scenarios. So I think I wanted in the next couple of minutes, hopefully see what kind of interaction we can do in this webinar format. So if the behavior card, so we'll try the game mechanics, I suppose. We'll try the game mechanic in a customized way. So this is the behavior card that we're all seeing. So I think there's a few people still left on the webinar, and so hopefully we get to engage in a variety of ways. So Mr. Mabel is constantly calling out for help. And what I'll do right now is actually activate a poll. So imagine that this is your slide deck or a card deck that you are that you have in your hand. So if you have 4 triggers in your hand of constant pain, does not feel included, or feels frustrated, or feels anxious, pick one of these triggers and let's see what the most selected action is, I guess, or most selected trigger is for Mr. Mabel. Half of you have voted, so I'll wait a few more seconds. All right, so let's close this and share with you. So the most selected trigger is that Mr. Mabel is in constant pain. So if that's the trigger that has been selected, mind you, it could be any of them. We all know that the trigger could be anything, but in order for us to select a plan or come up with an action in the moment, we have to have an idea of how to help this client. So in the next section, this is where we get to use our poll everywhere. So hopefully you haven't logged out of your poll everywhere website yet or your text, because really in the moment, as soon as you see Mr. Mabel calling out, what is the action that you could do right away for Mr. Mabel? So we gave you some terminologies earlier. So whether it's distract, reassure, what kind of actions could you do in the moment? All right, redirect, reassure. There you go. Some people have change in position. Yes, reassure. So we'll give you a few moments to see what kind of um, action in the moment we can do, because you know what the next step is going to be. Consider the team members. So reassure in the moment, and probably the next step is a pain assessment for the most part, if those are the top two considerations. Let's see if anything else gets bigger. Assessment is getting bigger. There you go. And so my question to you is, if we were going to take reassurance and hopefully asking somebody to reassess, what team members would you involve in order to support Mr. Mabel? So this is the next poll that we have. And hopefully you have an idea of who you're going to ask for help. So I want you to imagine your staff considering the team, the interprofessional team. And so let's see what team members people can. Nursing, nurse, physio, yes. And so you can see the kinds of application that you can use this game towards. So just considering the creativity of what kind of interventions could come up, the team could come up with. One of the things that we've noticed is that as we play the game, people want to share their the methods and techniques that has been successful for them. So we actually do pause gameplay in order for narratives and sharing to occur, and people from other homes or other teams or other units have a chance to work, to learn from each other and probably hopefully utilize some of the techniques that they've not encountered before. And so you can appreciate the creativity and the type of collaboration that comes out of the gameplay that happens here. And so thank you for playing a little mini trigger match with me. And we didn't even have to see each other to do that. I was hoping in future that we can somehow have an electronic version of this game. So that's one of my wish lists. Hopefully in the future, something we can see. And I guess if you're curious about learning the content of the e-learning session, oh, yeah, change slides. Sorry about that. Technical difficulties. Bear with me a second. Here we go. And so if you're curious about the e-learning, so our one-day learning session has been translated into e-learning that is available to you. And so this is called Team Essentials in Coordinating Care for Responsive Behaviors. And you can see a little bit of animation that I took a screen capture of, that is built into the session itself. And so contact us for the resource, for access to this e-learning. And we do have a website that talks about these, the 3 or 4 one-day learning sessions that we do have as a Baycrest Center for Learning Research and Innovation. And so this website is available to you. We do have a flyer to the Team Essentials program as part of your handout for any kind of further information that you may have or may have in mind, I guess. And so that's just a copy of what the Team Essentials flyer looks like. And so here is the question. I guess we've got 5 minutes for any kind of questions, comments, or any reactions that you'd like to share. Oh, And I guess as part of the handouts, we can share with you some of the word clouds that we came up with. So I'll just download that from Poll Everywhere, and we can share with you what these the word clouds actually came up with in the end, because they were still live in the background as I switch slides. Yeah, and we will also get the slides email. Thank you for that comment. Of course, we'll definitely send that out as best as we can. We do have your contact information. And no other questions here that I'm seeing. And if not, if there are no other questions, I guess there's about 4 minutes of found time for your next task or lunch. And thank you so much for taking the time to join us for this webinar. Hope we have the opportunity to learn from each other next month at our next webinar. Have a great day, everyone.